I don't know what happened. I apologize. The internet went out, and I'm not really sure how to reset a previously scheduled live stream. So I apologize. I'm not sure what happened here. Might have lost some of my people. Da-da. What is up, everybody? Apologize. I lost internet. I don't know what happened. It never happened to me in the past, at least in recent times, that it just completely shut off like this. But I don't know. I don't know how to restart a live stream, like one that you've already created. So I'll have to take a look if that happens in the future. I don't want to be recreating streams if, let's say, the internet goes out or whatever. But this was really weird. This is the first time that this happened to me. Maybe Russian trolls. I don't know. Could be. But with all jokes aside, I was talking about U.S. elections. So I'll wait until some of you come, and we'll continue talking. And hopefully, the internet won't turn off because that was really random. Good morning from Australia. Oh, that's right. What is the time difference between Canada? So I am on Eastern time. So that is like what, 14, 16 hours, if not even one day almost, 24 hours. I could be wrong here. Let me, uh, Australia time to Eastern Canada. Yeah, 12 hours. Crazy. 7:35. Damn. That's awesome. I need to also visit Australia. I've actually wanted to come a few years before, during COVID. Well, actually, before COVID, it was like in 2019 because Australia has this program where you can go and work there. I think it's like a temporary visa, workers visa, where you can work in like farms and um, I was kind of was really interested in looking into that and actually visiting Australia and like also doing a couple some jobs and finding work there, but it didn't work out because obviously COVID happened, and then we had 4 years, well, 2 3 years of pretty much um, difficulty with traveling. So these plans didn't come to fruition. And also, I really hate flying long because I just don't like flying for very long periods of time. So that's also difficult. Flying from Canada to Australia, depending on which coast you're at, it can be very long. But I need to go one day for sure. So yeah, I was talking about the U.S. elections, and Trump's coming to me would be devastating for Ukraine. Biden, we know what to expect. If Biden wins, we know what to expect, and he'll continue with his constant approach of giving a little bit more to Ukraine. Do I eventually believe the United States will permit Ukraine to strike Russia with, let's say, like long range ballistics or hypersonic, not hypersonic, but different missiles and American weapons? Yes, I believe if Biden is elected again, eventually, perhaps in a year, they'll give the green light for Ukraine to do it. But too late, right? Because Russia will have adapted to a certain extent. Not saying that it's too late, but Russia will know by then that the United States is about to give permission and they need to move their jet fighters a little bit further away. That will complicate Russia's war for sure, but we're still kind of opening that door for Russia, unfortunately, of like, let's still talk with Russia. There's still that presence. It's not massive, but it's still there, right? Like the West still wants to keep a door open just in case if Putin decides, you know what, I have enough and let's make a deal, right? Unfortunately, because we know that Putin's ambitions is what we saw yesterday with Ohmadit. That's what he wants to do in Ukraine. And if you give him 5 years of peace, he'll turn into 30 years of brutal war. So, it's a short-term solution. It's a band-aid solution, as we call it. And yeah, so unfortunately, watching the debate between Biden and Trump, it was pretty bad to see, Biden's cognitive abilities. Not to say that he's not a capable president, but he's getting really old. And I think that unfortunately it's too late for the Democrats to change, the runner-up. And Biden himself said that I'm staying in the race, which is the correct move because you have 4 months left until the election. I mean, who can you present in such a quick span amount of time that you can pretty much turn them into a likable president? It's almost impossible, right? At least Biden, the Americans are used to him. They know what he can do. Whereas if you bring like somebody totally new or somebody that hasn't been in the scene for a while, like it's too, it was badly calculated by the Democrats. They should have, if they wanted to change the runner up, it had to be done a year ago, if not even, kind of communicating that in advance that Biden's not planning to run again. Biden's not planning to run again. Run again. We need to find somebody that can replace him. But that should have been done a long time ago. So now we're stuck for sure with Biden versus Trump. And I mean, that's why voting is important. I think Trump is not only bad for Ukraine, but also for US. He said a lot of things in Roe versus Wade, right? Like telling pretty much women what they should or shouldn't do with their bodies. Should they keep the child? And that is decided by men. I don't understand that. So there's a lot of regression, I think, with Trump's coming, unfortunately. And that's the best that the Republican Party could come up with. I mean, the Republican Party is known as one of the best parties in the United States history, right? Lincoln, you had obviously Reagan, and maybe other presidents. Like they can do better than this. And I think a lot of Republicans right now, that's the issue with the two-party system, right? When you don't have also plurality. Sorry, had difficulty saying this word, but you need different, like when you have only two parties and the candidates, there's more possibility of them being polarizing, unfortunately. And that's the situation where there's such polarizing ideas now that, I don't even know, like if Trump comes, is he going to be still democratic, kind of upholding the democratic values of the United States? Because, now he can run for 2 terms again. I don't know. It's very scary. So that's that for the US elections. And, Biden needs to do something about making himself look stronger as well with regards to the Ukraine war, because saying that I was the one that stopped Russia type of statement isn't enough. Like we know that Russia still continues to do their terrorist campaigns in Ukraine and elsewhere, not only Ukraine. As a matter of fact, Russia's terrorism also goes on the seas. They're cutting off, water cables, flying their jet fighters through foreign airspaces and being very aggressive. That is even in Sweden, or sometimes they fly up to Britain. They fly their, not fly, but they have their ships in international waters where they're very aggressive as well. Like Russia's also committing terrorism outside, right? Killing off political rivals and things like that. There's espionage, troll factories. Like this is also another form of foreign terrorism by Russia. And we need to be prepared for that. And speaking of NATO as well in the US, there's also a lot of question marks with regards to Canada. I think that as a Canadian as well, we need to talk a little bit about the lack of investment by Canada in its military. And Trudeau is facing a lot of backlash because of that. Because again, it's not just the Liberal government, but throughout the past decades, Canada has turned into a joke in terms of military. And that needs to change. With all due respect to the veterans and the current people serving the military, it's not a military problem. It's a funding problem on the last few governments that have not been investing their fair share within the military. The procurement system is a joke. There's nobody that wants to be recruited anymore. The standards are so low right now in the Canadian military. Like we need to do better as well as Canadians. More investment. Security is extremely important. You look at Ukraine as the best example. When you don't have a prepared military, not enough men and women, and you don't have your logistics set up, you can be big trouble if you're attacked, right? And we hope that that doesn't happen, but you never know. Russia's aggressive. Russia can go for Hail Marys as well. Let's say with Canada, they've been very aggressive in the Arctic, claiming the Arctic for themselves. And, we need to be prepared for that as well in Canada, and cannot be reliant, especially with Trump's coming, possible, that he can say, we withdraw from NATO. Canada hasn't been paying its fair share, which to a certain extent, I agree. Canada has been kind of treading along. But Canada then really needs to rely on itself for security, right? Because the United States will say, the Trump administration will say, we're not helping you out here anymore, and that could be potentially a scenario where Canada just needs to do better. And I think that this is not just a Ukraine matter, but there's many countries around the world that have really been relaxed in terms of their military budgets. They said, there's no more war. Nothing's really impacting us anymore. We can reduce that GDP or the budget for the military spending. And that's a huge problem. I'm not saying everything needs to go towards the military, of course not, but you still need to keep some sort of level of security because we don't live in utopia. Unfortunately, the world will have many other future wars, and security and military is absolutely paramount to being able to protect your own citizens. So that's with regards to NATO. There's going to be a lot of talks about the countries that are not tomorrow and on the 11th, about countries that are not paying their fair share, or what type of involvement and cooperation that can happen between different countries, right? And a lot of countries will voice their concerns with Biden and the potentiality that he could not be there the next year and the next NATO summit. So, with that in mind, I think I covered pretty much the main things I want to talk about today. Overall, unfortunately, I had to talk again about the Ahmadid terrorist attack. It's been pretty terrible. It sucks because we see how existential this war is for Ukraine as well. It's an existential war, and when Russia tries to pretend that they can sign a peace agreement with Ukraine and everything's going to be nice and dandy, um, existential wars don't really have a real end, right? It's only a frozen conflict and then it comes back again. For Ukraine and Russia, it's existential. Although for Russians, it isn't. But Putin sees it that way because if he loses the war, that's it for him. The Russians won't forgive the losses and the resources and the waste that he's brought on the Russians for this war that Russia will lose. And I hope that that will happen. And I think that Ukraine can certainly win it. It needs more support from its partners. That's the only thing that is the most important. It's the most important factor here, right? As long as the West continues to support Ukraine with weapons, finances, just prepping Ukraine up, Ukraine has a fighting chance, and I really do believe it, because Russia can't keep going like this forever. You can throw as many bodies as you want, but if you don't have the vehicles, your economy goes into the crapper eventually. And we saw the U.S. sanctions last month with the U.S. Essentially cutting off and putting more sanctions on the Russian banking system, that the Russians now can no longer exchange their rubles for USDs or vice versa, and euros, which is a huge blow. Eventually, Russia will collapse economically as well. And even, I believe, the Minister of Finance, I think it's a woman, Nabulyunya, I forgot, something with Nadia something, that resigned, but now apparently she's still being kept within the Putin regime because she does a good job keeping the Russian economic system together. She says that Russia is heading for towards a brick wall very quickly, even herself. So not everything is going very smoothly perfect for Russia. And so I think that as long as the West continues its support of Ukraine economically, militarily, Ukraine just needs to be stronger than Russia to win, and that can happen. But there's many variables, and the situation is dynamic, obviously. So that's that for today, guys. I apologize for the little situation with the stream. Before I end the video, the live stream, let me read some of your comments. Yeah, Project 2025, very scary for sure. That's the thing I was talking about with Trump and his administration turning into a authoritarian or some sort of dictatorship. That's totally possible, right? Based on that, like Project 2025 and all the policies that were written in there. Some of this stuff is scary, right? Like the United States, I hope that doesn't happen. And so that's why voting is really important, sending out a message that we don't stand behind this. I know Biden is not a charismatic leader, and many people are kind of afraid, but at least you know what to expect with him, and you know that he's held the country together, and it's a still democratic nation to this day. With Biden, with Trump, unfortunately, instability, there could be chaos and a lot of internal fighting, which we don't want to see, and I don't want that to happen. but voting and democracy is something that we need to protect at all costs. At all costs. This is what allows me to have a live stream with you guys and talk about my opinions without worrying that I might get, put in prison tomorrow, or God forbid something else happens. Right? This is what basic things like that we don't realize is so valuable in our society. Just being able to talk freely, not worry like, oh, like I'm gonna vote for this party, and then oh really? Well, we're putting you in prison type of situation, or corruption everywhere. We don't live in perfect societies, but we still need to um, be grateful for what we have, right? The countries that we live in, whether it be US or Canada or Europe, somewhere in Europe, they're not perfect countries. They have their fair amount of issues, but I would rather live in Canada than live in Russia or North Korea or Iran or China, for that matter. I would never want to live in a society like that. And I really feel sorry for the people that have to live through that. Even in Russia, that don't agree with the system, but they were born, they didn't win the lottery card, unfortunately. So I will always support democracy because this is something that is so core. So many people died in the past, previous generations, and our great grandfathers and great great grandfathers fought wars over just what we can have today, for what we can have today. So that's really important to protect. And so that's why I think Biden's the choice for 2024, in my opinion. Trump, no. So that's the video for today, guys. I appreciate, or I should say, the live stream. I'm so used to saying that's the video for today. That's the live stream of today. I appreciate that you guys came. We weren't that many. We were about 40 or 50, I think, at best. But I really appreciate your support nonetheless. And I appreciate the fact that you not only support my channel, but again, support the Ukrainian cause. You guys are vital. Every single one of you are our voice of reason. You can talk with your colleagues, some of your parents about Ukraine, and tell them, you know what Russia's doing is disgusting. Having these conversations is always important to have them in public. And so you also have an importance here to play. So I really am grateful for that as well. So huge thank you, guys. I will see you in the next one.